The last Christmas card. Ellen Harrison always started preparing for Christmas a week in advance. This year was no exception. She hung garlands, checked every bulb, made a list of dishes that had to be on the table. Dave watched this with quiet irony but didn't object. Amy painted snowflakes on the windows with white paint, carefully drawing each ray. On December 21st, Ellen went out to the mailbox on Maple Street for the newspaper and found a card there. An ordinary Christmas card with a glossy coating. On it was a photo, a living room, a Christmas tree, a sofa, 3 people smiling at the camera. She immediately recognized the room. This was their living room. The tree stood in the same corner where they put it every year. But the people in the photo, Ellen squinted. The faces were blurred, as if the shot had been taken with an old camera. She turned the card over. On the back, in neat handwriting, was written, "May this evening stay with you forever." December 24th, no signature, no return address, no other information. Ellen returned to the house, placed the card on the kitchen table, and forgot about it until evening. When Dave came home from work at the engineering firm in Cambridge, she showed him what she'd found. He glanced at it carelessly, shrugged. Someone probably mixed up addresses. Or kids from the Johnsons' house down the street are playing around, he said and went to wash up. Amy approached the table when her parents weren't in the kitchen. She picked up the card, stared at the photo for a long time. Her fingers trembled. She recognized this tree. She had seen this photo before. The next morning, Ellen woke up with a feeling that something was wrong. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand what was bothering her. Then she remembered, the card. She got up, threw on a robe, and went to the kitchen. The card was still lying on the table, exactly where she'd left it. Ellen picked it up again, looked more carefully at the photo. 3 people in the shot sat on the sofa, a man, a woman, a child. The faces were unclear, but the poses seemed familiar. The woman held her hand on the child's shoulder. The man smiled. The tree glowed with lights. Everything looked cozy, warm, right. But Ellen didn't remember this photo. She remembered all her family photographs. There weren't many. She carefully sorted them, kept them in albums. This shot wasn't there. Maybe someone took it at the neighborhood holiday party and forgot to give it back, she thought. But what party? They hadn't hosted anything for Christmas for the last 3 years in this Newton house. Dave entered the kitchen, pouring himself coffee from their Keurig. He noticed that Ellen was holding the card again. "You're still thinking about this?" he asked, slightly irritated. "Ellen, it's just a postal error. Throw it away and forget it." She wanted to answer, but at that moment Amy ran out of her room, holding a sheet of paper. "Mom, look what I drew," the girl exclaimed. Ellen looked at the drawing. Amy had drawn the living room, the tree, 3 people on the sofa. Almost an exact copy of the photo from the card. But in Amy's drawing, in the corner of the room, stood another figure, dark, without a face, with long arms. "Amy, what is this?" Ellen asked, pointing to the dark figure. The girl looked at her sincerely, without any hint of a joke. "That's the one who takes the photos. He always stands there. Don't you see him?" Ellen felt coldness run down her spine. Dave frowned, took the drawing from her hands. "Amy, enough of these games. Where did you see this photo?" He showed the card. "Did you find it somewhere in the house?" Amy was silent, then said quietly. "In the attic. Last summer. There are many more photos there." Ellen and Dave exchanged glances. They hadn't gone up to the attic since they moved here from their apartment in Boston 5 years ago. Things from the previous owners were stored there, an old box they had never sorted through. "Show us," Ellen said. They went up to the attic all together. Amy approached the corner where a wooden box covered with dust stood. She opened it. Inside lay photographs, dozens of old shots, yellowed with time. Ellen began sorting through them. Each photo showed this house. Different years, different people, but always the same place, their living room, their kitchen, their bedroom. Some shots had people Ellen didn't know. Others showed empty rooms. And on one of them was the same photo as on the card. Dave took it, held it up to the card. Identical image. "Someone just copied an old photo and sent it to us," he said, but his voice sounded less confident. Ellen didn't answer. She was looking at the other photographs. On all of them, in the corner of each shot, was a dark spot. As if someone stood there, but the camera couldn't capture them. That evening, on December 22nd, Ellen couldn't fall asleep. She lay next to Dave, listening to his even breathing, thinking about the photographs. Who took them? Why were they all taken in this house? And most importantly, who sent them the card? Around 2 in the morning, she heard a sound. A quiet metallic click, as if someone had opened the mailbox. Ellen got up, approached the window, and looked outside. Maple Street was empty, snow-covered, quiet. No tracks in the snow. The streetlights cast yellow pools on the pristine white. But something made her put on her robe and leave the house. Cold New England air hit her face, snow crunched under her bare feet. She approached the mailbox and opened it. A new card lay inside. Ellen took it with trembling fingers and returned to the house. In the kitchen, under the lamp, she examined the shot. This was their kitchen. The same table, the same chairs, the same lamp overhead. But on the table lay the first card, the one they had received yesterday. The photo was taken from above, as if a camera hung from the ceiling. Ellen slowly raised her head, looked at the ceiling. Nothing. Just white plaster and a lamp. She turned the card over. The inscription, "Silence is a gift too." December 23rd. Ellen's heart pounded so loudly she could hear it in her ears. She placed the card on the table, next to the first one, and returned to the bedroom. Dave was sleeping. She didn't wake him. What could she say? That someone was photographing their house from inside? That someone knew what would happen tomorrow? On the morning of December 23rd, Amy didn't come down for breakfast. Ellen went up to her room and found her daughter by the window. The girl was staring at the street without blinking. "Amy, what happened?" Ellen asked. "He's there," the girl said quietly. "Who?" "The one who takes the photos. He's standing on the street." Ellen approached the window, looked outside. Maple Street was empty. Snow fell thickly, in large flakes that quickly erased any traces. The colonial houses across the street looked like ghosts in the white haze. "There's no one there, sweetheart," Ellen said, hugging her daughter. "There was," Amy insisted. "He stood and looked at our house. Without a face. Like a shadow." Ellen felt her hands grow cold. She led Amy away from the window, sat her on the bed. "Listen to me carefully. If you see anything unusual, come to me or Dad right away. Okay?" Amy nodded, but in her eyes was anxiety that a child couldn't hide. That evening, when they were all in the living room, the lights suddenly went out. Dave cursed, got up from the sofa, went to check the electrical panel in the basement. Ellen lit candles. Amy sat on the floor, hugging her knees. The electricity is fine, Dave said, returning. Probably some issue with Eversource. I'll call them now. He picked up his phone, dialed the number. Waited. Nothing. Checked the signal, complete absence of connection. Strange, he muttered. Usually Verizon works perfectly here in Newton. Ellen approached the window. Snow fell so thickly that she could barely see the Goldsteins' house next door. White swirls enveloped everything, as if the world beyond their house had ceased to exist. Dave, she said quietly. What? Today is the 23rd. So what? The card said, December 23rd. Silence is a gift too. Dave was silent. Then he walked to the front door, tried to open it. The handle turned, but the door didn't budge. He pulled harder, nothing. As if someone was holding it from the other side. It's jammed, he said, and fear appeared in his voice for the first time. Ellen went to the kitchen. A new card lay on the table. She hadn't noticed it before. The photo showed an empty living room, dark, lit only by candles. Exactly as it was now. And the inscription, every room remembers. December 24th. Dave, her voice trembled. Come here. Right now. Dave stood by the kitchen table, looking at the card. His face had gone pale. He picked it up, turned it over, read the inscription aloud. Every room remembers. December 24th. That's tomorrow, Ellen whispered. Amy entered the kitchen, holding another card. Mom, I found this on my bed. Ellen took it. The photo showed Amy's bedroom. The bed, the desk, the window overlooking the backyard. But on the floor lay a doll that Amy always kept on the shelf. And on the wall was written in chalk one word, remember. I didn't write that, Amy said. But when I came to my room, it was already there. Dave turned sharply and ran upstairs. Ellen and Amy followed him. He burst into the children's room, turned on the flashlight on his iPhone. On the wall, near the bed, one word was written in white chalk, remember. Who did this? His voice was harsh, almost angry. Amy, was it you? No, the girl burst into tears. I didn't do it. I came in and it was already there. Ellen hugged her daughter, looking at Dave. She's telling the truth. You can see she's scared. Dave ran his hand over his face. He was trying to stay calm, but his hands trembled. Okay. Okay. We need to think rationally. Someone broke into the house. Someone is leaving these cards. We need to find how he's getting inside. They walked through the entire house. Checked every window, every door, every lock. Everything was closed. No signs of intrusion. No broken locks or open windows. This is impossible, Dave said. Physically impossible. Ellen approached the window in the living room. Snow was still falling. She looked at the ground near the house. No tracks. The white carpet of snow was perfectly smooth, untouched. Dave, she said quietly. What if he's not coming from outside? What do you mean? What if he's already here? What if he's always been here? Dave wanted to object, but the words stuck in his throat. Amy approached them, took her mother's hand. Mom, do you remember that Christmas? Which one? The one in the photo. When we all sat by the tree. Ellen squinted. Amy, I don't remember that photo. We never took such a picture. But we were there, the girl insisted. I remember. It was dark. Very cold. And someone stood behind us. Someone without a face. Ellen felt the room spin around her. She sat down on the sofa, trying to restore her breathing. It's a dream, Amy. You dreamed it. No, the girl shook her head. It was real. I remember the silence. I remember how the light went out. And I remember that we couldn't get out. Dave approached the box of photographs they had brought from the attic. He began sorting through the shots one by one. Then stopped. His face contorted. Ellen. Look at this. He showed her a photograph. On it were a man, a woman, and a child by a Christmas tree. The faces were blurred. But the clothes. Ellen recognized the sweater she wore last Christmas. Recognized Dave's flannel shirt from LL Bean. Recognized Amy's red dress. This is us, she whispered. But I don't remember this photo. On the back of the shot was an inscription in the same neat handwriting, December 24th, the first Christmas. The night before December 24th, they spent together in the living room, not letting each other out of sight. Candles burned down, casting trembling shadows on the walls. Dave held a flashlight, periodically illuminating the corners of the room. Amy slept on the sofa, covered with a blanket. Ellen sat nearby, not taking her eyes off her. We'll get out of here in the morning, Dave said quietly. Break the window if we have to. Call 911 from the Goldsteins. But we'll get out. Ellen nodded but didn't believe his words. She felt that something was holding them here. Something stronger than locks and walls. She looked at the photographs spread out on the table. Dozens of shots of different people in this house. Different years, different families. But all the photos had one common detail, a dark spot in the corner of the frame. Always in the same place. Dave, she whispered. What if we're not the first? What do you mean? What if all these people in the photographs also received cards? What if they also couldn't get out? Dave was silent. Then he got up, approached the fireplace. There hung an old frame with a photograph they had never removed. It was here when they bought the house from the bank. The shot showed a middle-aged couple by a Christmas tree. Smiling faces, warm light. He took down the frame, turned it over. On the back was an inscription, the last Christmas of the Chin family. December 24th, 2018. Chen. Dave repeated. Those are the previous owners. The ones who disappeared, Ellen added quietly. The realtor hadn't told them much when they bought the house. Only that the previous owners had relocated suddenly and the house had been foreclosed. But now Ellen remembered the rumors that circulated at the Newton Community Center. About the family that lived here before them. About how no one saw them after Christmas. About how the house stood empty for almost a year until the bank sold it at auction. We need to get out of here, Ellen said, standing up. She approached the window, picked up a heavy candlestick, and struck the glass with all her strength. It didn't break. Didn't even crack. As if the window was made not of glass but of something harder. Dave ran to her, tried himself. Same result. The glass didn't react. This is impossible, he repeated. Amy woke up from the noise. She sat up, rubbed her eyes, and looked at her parents. Then her gaze stopped on something behind their backs. He's here, she whispered. Ellen and Dave turned sharply. In the corner of the living room, where there was always a dark spot in the photographs, stood a figure. Tall, motionless, without a face. Just a silhouette, as if cut out of darkness. In its hands was a camera. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, holding the camera. Ellen felt her legs go numb. Dave pushed her and Amy behind him, shielding them with his body. "Who are you?" His voice trembled. The figure tilted its head, as if listening. Then slowly raised the camera and pressed the shutter. A flash blinded them for a moment. When their vision returned, the figure had vanished. A new card lay on the floor. Ellen picked it up. The photo showed the three of them, her, Dave, and Amy, standing in this very room, in these very poses. The photograph had been taken a second ago. On the back, the inscription, "Merry Christmas. Thank you for staying." Amy burst into tears. Dave hugged them both, pressed them to himself. "We'll get out," he repeated. "We'll get out." But Ellen knew. She looked at the photograph and understood. They wouldn't get out. They never got out. This Christmas repeated again and again, like a loop with no exit. Every family that lived here fell into it. Each became part of the collection. The light went out completely. Only the snow outside the window glowed in the darkness, white, endless, cold. On the morning of December 26th, neighbors on Maple Street noticed that the lights weren't on in the Harrison house. Mrs. Goldstein knocked on the door, no one answered. Newton police arrived in the evening, broke the lock. The house was empty. No signs of struggle, no signs of departure. Only photographs spread out on the table and one card with the inscription, "Merry Christmas. Thank you for staying." In the mailbox of the Goldsteins' house next door, a new card was waiting.